Hello and welcome to the third video in the series of Introduction to Macro Programming. What I thought I would do this time is to look at various stages in creating a macro. What I did was somebody asked me to produce a macro, so as I went through creating it I made notes and kept copies of the macro, the stage that the macro had reached, so that I could reproduce each of the stages for you to see, and the idea is that you'll be able to see various techniques as I go along. So I've called it the genesis of a macro, and it's going to take quite a while to go through it, so I think it'd be safer to do it in a couple of sessions. So we'll start with Genesis of a Macro Part 1. Right, now the inquirer said to me that they'd got a lot of value in the past from the number to text macro. Don't really know that one. And suppose I've just got a bit of rubbish text here, and the point of the macro is that you start from where the cursor is there, and it will go along the line and find a number such as 3 there, a digit, and we'll change it to text. So if I run the macro once, I get that, and again, and again, and again, 342, 142, and so on. It will go through changing the numbers, the digits, the figures into words. And the inquirer said, have you got a macro that goes from text to number? And I had a look, found that I hadn't, and so that's our task today, is to try and work out how to go from the words to the numbers, to the figures. So the first job in something like that is to analyze the problem, and what we've got is here's a bit of sample text, which is just any old random text with various various numbers in the form of text, and I've just sort of highlighted them in given them a bit of colour so we can see what's what, and I've also thrown in a few googlies in there. I've got 42 there without a hyphen, and I've got 342, or should I say 342, because that's the American way of writing it, as opposed to the British one here, 206. And I've got another one here, where are we? 402, American version. So, right, let's get started. So, what defines, that's the first thing we're going to do, what defines a number? Well, then is obviously not part of the number. 342. Okay, so there are certain words that can occur in something which is a number. So you've got obviously the 1, 2, 3, 4, you've got 10, 20, 30, 40, you've got hyphens, you've got and you've also got a, because you might have here we've got 116, but here you've got 142, which is perfectly acceptable form of text. Right, so my idea came, well, okay, what I've got to do is to try to set up a bank of text which contains all these various numbers. So let's have a go at that. So what have we got here? We've got so I thought to myself, okay, well, we've got units, so 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on, and I put a colon in between each one to separate them out, because you've got to watch for things like 6 and 60, because of course 6 is part of 60 and it's also part of 16, so you've got to watch out for words in words. So when we're manipulating this text, we're going to be looking for things like colon 6 colon or colon 60 colon, so there's no ambiguity as to what we're looking for if we're trying to find the position of something. And the idea of the position, of course, is that if I find colon 4 colon, then it's at a certain position in that string. And if you look, if you take the number 4, then to the left of that number are 1, 2, 3, 4 colons. So if I can find the position of the word 4, and then count the number of colons to the left of it, then I will have a numerical representation of the number 4. So I will have converted the word 4 into the number, the value 4. And similarly with the tens, suppose I'm looking for 50. Well, let's go to 30. It's easier. So suppose I'm looking for 30. I find it there, and then I can count the number of colons in front of it. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and so if I know the position there, I can say, well, okay, there's 3 colons, so I want 3 lots of 10 to make up my 30. Then in the teens, same idea. If we're looking for 13, then to the left of it there are 3 colons, so I can in some way calculate the value from the position of the word 13 in that string. And then I pulled all those three strings into one long string, and I've called it all number words. So that's the units, the tens and the teens, and I've also added on the end all these other numbers, all these other words, sorry, that might occur in a given text-based number. Right. Okay. So the first stage in my thinking was, all right, we're gonna put the cursor presumably at the beginning of one of these words, like in the 3 of 342 or whatever, and then we're going to have to look through. So if we're looking through, say 240, you have to look through from that word. 2 is okay, 100 is okay, and is okay, 40 is okay, and I think it'll pick up the full stop there as the next word. Now that is not one of my words. That will not come anywhere in this string, all number words. So that defines, if you like, the end of that word. Similarly with this one here, 206, 206, but. So the word but is not in my bank of words, and therefore I know I've reached the end of the relevant text. So the first thing I want to do then is to find where the cursor is, which is we use selection, and I want to leave the cursor where it is. So what I do is to create a range, to set a range which is the duplicate of that range. In other words, RNG is a range which will consist of just the position of the cursor. I suppose it's in the word 3 down here. What am I doing next? Okay, I'm saying range.expand word, WD word. So what that is saying is, if I double click on that, that's expanding the selection, and so the range expand is the same sort of thing. It will expand the range to cover the word 3. And then what I say is move the end of the range by 6, number 6, words. So it'll shunt along from there, and the end of the range will be somewhere out here, depending on what other words are there. And then the next thing I'm going to do is to look through the first 6 words, because I know that none of my words is more than 6, but actually what I've done is I've done 8 to make sure I fall off the end of the word and view each one. Okay, so let's have a look at that bit of code in the actual Visual Basic. So if I open Visual Basic here, so this is my macro version 1. So I've got all my texts, all the bank of texts. I've got setting the range, expanding the one word and then moving by 8 words, and then there's my for next loop where I look at the different words. So what I've done here is to set up that line there. I've set up that should be 8, shouldn't it? I've set up a dimensioned array, a string array, to pick up these words, and so I want to go through and see what I've got. So if I click in the 300 there, I'm ready to run this macro. So I want to see whether this array picks up the words as I want them. What I've also done is to take each word in turn, words I, and I've trimmed it because I've got to take off the spaces, because there are no spaces in these words that in my word bank. Okay, so let's try that. Now I want to go through those, but I want to stop and see what I've got. So I've just put a rubbish sort of line here, which is created by sort of twiddling the keyboard, equals 0, and then put a breakpoint on there, so the macro will stop at that point. And where's the cursor? Yeah, cursor's in 3. That's all right. So we're ready to run this. Now, if I run that, then it will set up the array, hopefully with the words that we've got there. How do we see what they are? Well, if you look at View, the View tab here, and go down to Locals window and click on that, you get a window down there which says Expression, Value and Type. So what does it do? Okay, let's run it and see what we get. So if we're going to run it, is that okay? Yeah. Okay, so if I run the macro, goes to there and it says what am I doing? I don't know, so just cancel that. What am I doing? Oh yes, I needed to click in the macro in order to run that macro. Run. Okay, so it's gone through the macro, it's gone round the for next loop 8 times, and we've ended up with some variables here. And I don't know how much you can see on the screen there, but what we've got is we've got units here. My units, that's that string. My tens is that string, and at the end here it says variant string, so it's a string variable. All number words there, look, is the whole thing, and actually if I slide that out further, you can see that's joined them all together there. Range, that's not, we're not interested in range particularly, but that is the range that it's talking about, and presumably if I click on the plus sign there, then it gives me all of the parameters to do with that range. And if I look down, there's a load of stuff that I don't really need. If I go down as far as range.text, there, okay, so range.text is 342 soldiers J GKJ. In other words, it's that range over that you can see on the screen there. Okay, so that's what range is doing, but it's not terribly relevant at the moment, but it might be important later, or the idea might be important later. So let's close that down by clicking on the minus sign, in other words make that smaller, and then word or WD. So there's your funny variable, which hasn't yet been, it hasn't reached that line yet, so it hasn't set that variable to 0, so at the moment it's just empty, so it doesn't know what it is. I is the for next loop variable, and that's now got to 9 because it's done 1 to 8. Right, so the important thing is to click on the plus for WD, and what have we got? Well, yes, it has worked. We've got WD1 is 3, then we've got 140 hyphen, so that's an important idea, is that yes, that's right, the hyphen is one of the words, and then we've got 2, and then soldiers and so on. Right, so those that variable has string variable with the dimensioned array has picked up all the words we want, so we are ready to try and use them. Right, so let's close that down. Okay, so let's stop that and decide what we're going to do next. Okay, so what we want to do next is to try and work out what's going on in terms of what each of these words actually represents. So let's think about that. Okay, so what I've done is to add to the for next loop. I've added some lines to the for next loop. First of all, I've thought it'd be good to trim the word separately. So I've trimmed it, in other words taken the space off, and that's going to appear in the variable this word. Then what I've done is to say, is this word actually somewhere in the string of words? But rather than just looking for the word itself, this is what I was saying earlier, so in other words, suppose it's 30, rather than just looking for 30, I want to look for colon 30 colon. So I add a colon at the beginning and a colon at the end, so that that whole thing there will be colon 30 colon or whatever. And I want to know if that whole thing is actually somewhere in all number words. If it is in that number, then put this word into the array that we did before. When we did it before, we just put them in anyway, put all of the words in. But in this case, we only want to put them in if those words are in that array. And so that we can see what's going on, I've put another command in here, debug print. Now, what that does is it records, if you like, what the value of this word is, and it puts it where I can see it. Now, where does it put it? Okay, let's go over to VBA, get rid of the locals window, and what we want instead on the View tab is the immediate window, which is Control G. Okay, so what it's going to do is every time you get a debug print something, it puts that something into the immediate mode here, into the immediate mode window. So in other words, it will type 30 or 1 or 6 or 16 or whatever into that window there, and it will follow it by a space. I did that just so that I could see them more easily in that window. Okay, well let's try that and just see what it does. We need to stop it in order to be able to see it step by step. So why don't we stop it at the end of at each end of the loop? So at the end of each item in the loop, I equals 1, I equals 2, and so on, we'll stop it and see what we've got. We need to put the cursor somewhere sensible. So I've got a 342 here. So stick the cursor in there and then try running this macro. Okay, so it's put in the immediate window, it's put 3. Let's run it again. 300. And okay, now a point to note there is, if we go back to the window here, what I've done in the debug print line is to put in the word yes, to add a space, but I put a semicolon on the end, which means put that word into the immediate mode window, but don't generate a new line. In other words, put it on the same line. And what I've then done at the end here, after the for next loop, I've put in just a straightforward debug print line, which means print a new line. So then it will bring the cursor from this line 340 whatever down onto the next line. So let's try it. So we let's put a stop so it doesn't go any further. Let's go to the next value of I. So we're getting 42, and then it hits the debug print line, and it goes to the next line. Let's just stop it there so that we can see what's happened. So if we go into there, the cursor's down here. In other words, it's printed that and it's gone on to a new line. So if I run that again, it'll go wrong because the cursor's in the wrong place. Put the cursor in 342. Right, run this again. So it does 342. Stop. Run it again. So in other words, it's printing that out as a way of showing me what's going on. What do I do next? Don't know. Can't remember. Okay, I think it's nearly time to stop. I've gone on for too long. So the next step, when you've got that array of words set up, then we've somehow got to translate that into numbers. So that, I mean, it's easy for the where are they? The numbers 1, 2, 3, because we just count the colons, and then 1 is 1, 2 is 2, and so on. So we can get a number easily from that. With the 10, 20, 30, then okay, we're going to get 11, 12, 13, and with the teens, then we're going to get 20 something, 21, 22. So let's have a look what we've done. Okay, let's find the coding in a larger size. Here it is. Yeah, here it is. Move that out the way. Open that out. Right, so what we're going to do. So again, we set up an array. This time it's an array of numbers, of integers, and we're going through. What we did. Oh yes, I didn't say about the else here. The else here says if this word is actually included in all number words, then record it. But if it's not in there, in other words, the else, then count, then sort of decide how many words we've got. I will have got to if we've got, say, 6 words, I will have now got to 7 because we've found a word that's not in our bank of words. So I then will be 7, take one off, we get 6. So num words is going to be 6. Then we exit the for loop and get down to here. So by the time we get down to here, num words will equal 6, and we will have got 6 useful words ready to interpret. That line there was something I thought about, was that if the word a occurs, in other words 100 or 119 or something, then change it to 1 so that it's 100 and something. So that was just ready to help me with the interpretation later. Okay, so what do we do in this loop? So we find the position in the string. So we've got the string here, look. So if suppose it's 3, so we're looking for colon 3 colon. So word position, that's just my variable to pick up the position of this colon 3 colon in all number words. So there's your colon and 3 and colon. So we're asking, where is it? Find the position in the string, find the position in that string, in the all number word string, and then just record it, so that just remember it if you like. And then what we're going to do is to sort of like chop off that bit of text. So we find the number. Well, let's do it with. Wait, I better stop this, hadn't I? Stop that. Put the cursor there. Run this as far as where it is there. Okay. Run it to there, and WDI. You can see that is 3. So that's the first word is THREE, and so we've got the word position is 9. WD pos is 9. So that's if we start from the colon, colon and ONE gives us 4, colon and TWO gives us 8, and then the next colon gives us 9. So that string is starting at position 9. So what have we got next? So if I step one on, so leftwards there now is colon 1. Whoops, alright, start again. Over there, colon 1, colon 2, colon. So that's the left hand side of it. Right, so the next bit is this, actually it's not in the code on the screen there, sorry, but I've got here without colons, so I've added this line in to make it clearer. So without colons, what I've done is I've used the replace command, which says in the string leftwards, replace each colon with nothing, with a null string. So in other words, it will take all the colons out. It will generate a string called without colons, and again, I don't think you can see it, it says 1, 2. So in other words, the colons have disappeared, so that's now just a 6 character word, and our original without colons, our original leftwards had the colons in, so that had 9 characters. So the difference between 6 and 9 should be, we haven't run that yet, so if I run that line, then we get 3. So 3 is the difference between the length of the whole thing, colon 1, colon 2, colon, and the chopped off bit, just the 1, 2. So if we go on, we get the debug. So then in the debug there, I've put the value that's in the array, the integer that's in the array, that's number 3, the number 3, and then I've just printed out the WDI as well, so that's 3. So if we go through that, if I put a stop on there, and then we run through them one by one, so I get for 100, for the word 100, I get 20. For 31, for and I get 31 because that's off the end of the string somewhere. For 40, I get 14, so that's after the units in the next bank. Are they 10, 20, 30, and so on. The hyphen is up at 32. The number 2, the TWO is 2, and there we go. So we are sort of teed up ready with a load of values, a load of numbers that relate to the words in our overall number. And well, I think I better stop there, and I'll take on to the next stage in the next video. Okay, thanks for watching.